Michelle, you talked a lot about agriculture in your talk and how that relates to communities and creates and facilitates a discussion. I was wondering how people who may not be full-time farmers can become a part of this discussion and perhaps even initiate it themselves.
I think the most important thing somebody can do if they're not involved in agriculture or a farmer themselves is simply to try to buy local food. We all eat 3 meals a day, so we're involved in the conversation because we're making those food decisions. And even if it's small, because small steps towards a better food system will eventually get us there. And so not getting overwhelmed and not feeling guilty for not doing enough, but just the small steps, even if it's in the next week, I'll try to buy one thing local, or I'll try to support an institution that's buying local.
Awesome. That's pretty inspiring to know that even our small decisions can have a broad impact. Stephanie, you talked a little bit about this new decision-making model where instead of just saying yes or no, we actually start to have different modifiers to how we talk about things. I was wondering, what is the gap between you going from yes if to no unless and the fluidity of that happening, and what actually affects how you're going to change your decisions based on what clients might say or business models, anything of that sort?
Great question. Right. So having these dichotomies, just the hard yes, no, maybe doesn't work well for me. But yes, if and no unless work, because typically I have a very strong initial feeling about something, and there might be one or two things that are hanging me up. And initially, I typically don't know what those things are. But as I dig into it, so I imagine a dartboard. I imagine that Cartesian plane, the 4-quadrant decision-making matrix as a dartboard. When I am first posed a question or an opportunity, where would I just intuitively put the dart? And typically, yes and no are pretty easy, and yes if, no unless might take a little bit longer, but once it's placed, then I break down the decisions as to what is the unless or what is the if. I think of options. It could be, if we can do this in a month from now, or unless the audience is able to ask questions, I'm not able to be a part of it. So the main differentiator is, part of it is the likelihood of change. I think if it's very likely that the situation will align with the work I'm doing, that's a yes if. I'm more likely to do it. If I see more challenges or there are more questions and things that I'm a bit leery about, it's typically going to be a no unless. Yeah.
Justin and Kyle, we've got one from social media here just asking, I guess if a student has an idea right now, is it better to start now or should you wait, or kind of how would you all say on that?
As I said earlier, talk to your friends, talk to your peers, talk to the people in this institution that can help you, and try to refine and distill your idea into its core, most pure thing, so you can easily convey it to other people. So often when I talk to people about their entrepreneurial ideas, they can talk forever, but you need to synthesize it to its, core essential part.
My answer to that would be, what do you have to lose right now? If you wait till you're older, you're going to have the regrets of why didn't I do it then? And also, when you do it when you're older, you most likely will have a lot more to lose. You're going to have more things by then, the mortgage, your car payments, and all that fun stuff. So at a young age right now, we don't own very much, so we don't have that much to lose by if we do try it out and it does fail. So, and just if you do try it and it does, learn from it and try it again.
Michelle, we've got a question. What is the best restaurant besides home here in Bowling Green to buy locally sourced food?
That's a great question. Well, WKU campus.
Yep.
So that's one. I know Nova Dolce, Cambridge Market. Honestly, if you'll support independent restaurants, they are the ones that can most likely source local. So a lot of the independently owned restaurants in town do source local some, and they're the ones that are going to be able to do that quicker. Your chain restaurants aren't going to be able to do that as quickly. So I say support local artists, local farmers, and local business owners.
We've got a question. Stephanie, what was your favorite yes if or no unless project?
Good question. Let's see. Oh, actually wonderful. There was a school that called me in, and I think they'd heard about some of my work in town, other places, and they asked me if I could take over a teacher's class for a month. And the work that they were doing in the school was fantastic. I thought the students would have been great to work with, but that time frame was just too long of a commitment for me with other things that I had going on. So I said, yes, if I can be the primary facilitator and plan the activities for the month, start out for the first few weeks, and then bring in other guest artists to take care of it. And I was able to explain how that would be a great benefit for the students. They would be able to work with so many different people, and they were flexible enough to, alter my time in the classroom, but still get, hopefully, what was a rich arts education experience. A lot of times I think it's just coming up with options. Sometimes when we are proposed something or we're asked a question, people have a specific vision, or I might even have a specific vision of what it would be. But the if and unless open up the possibilities just to brainstorm other ways and other configurations of an agreement.
Here's one for Justin and Kyle, I think. If you have a cutting edge idea that you think others might want to steal, how and who do you share it with?
Okay, so this is something you see often. People are like, I've got to hoard my idea and I've got to keep it in because someone's going to steal it from me and they're going to take it from you. But at the end of the day, the only real protection you have is intellectual property protection in the form of like a patent or a trademark or something. But this requires lots of court and litigation. And so ideas are a dime a dozen, in my mind. And so the real core of a business, why it comes into existence, is because someone's really passionate about something. And so if you're really passionate about this new idea, this innovative idea, like let's say something like Uber, go ahead and run with it and talk to other people, because Uber got to where it is now because they were talking to many people, bringing in people, hiring new people, not because they kept it to themselves. But if it can be patented, go for it too. So
that, and the people, the staff at the WKU Student Business Accelerator, they'll sign a non-disclosure, all the stuff that needs to be handled properly, and it's a very trustworthy, comfortable environment to where you can go in there and just bounce your ideas and thoughts off of them. They'll critique it. They're not going to tell you yes, they're not going to tell you no, but they're going to give you advice on how they think that it would be most beneficial on how to proceed with the idea that you have.
Michelle, we have got a question here, and it says, where to go? What are your thoughts on antibiotics in food, and how can we know if our farmers are using them?
Well, first off, one of the benefits of buying from local farmers is that you can meet them face to face and ask those questions. I think that we all know that we need to be doing better as in our agriculture and the foods that we're eating. At the same time, it's important to me to always start the conversation about food from a point of hunger. We have a lot of people in our community that are hungry, and also as a realist to look at what we're really eating every day, the food that we actually eat, and start making better choices towards fresh, real food. And that's going to move all of us forward and put more pressure on farmers to make better choices as well.
The next question we have is, what is the best art and business collaboration you are brainstorming?
Well, one that I'm very excited about right now, I have a collection of poetry gumball machines, poetry vending machines. So they're old repurposed, gumball machines, but inside of the plastic bubbles, I place poems. And businesses are renting them from me, often coffee houses, restaurants, special events also, including weddings or fundraisers. They rent them from me, and on the front, I'll have a poem that relates to the event or the location. And on the back of the piece of paper inside of the bubble, I'm able to place QR codes or social media campaign, websites, coupons. So it's a way of advertising, an alternative to magazine or newspaper or even online advertising that pulls people in. When you see that little poetry gumball machine, hopefully people are excited, anticipating what might be inside. And it's been a great way for businesses to have another communication vehicle and for me to get poetry out into the world.
This one comes from Scarlett Gent. She said, Michelle, can you talk about the Wishing Well Dream Incubator on March 29th?
Yes, thank you, Scarlett. This will be the second year that our farm, Need More Acres, will be partnering with Home Cafe and Marketplace to host the Wishing Well event. And the Wishing Well is honestly a lot like Shark Tank, except we're really friendly and nice. But 3 businesses will actually pick them tomorrow, and you can go to the Wishing Well on Facebook to get more information. But we'll pick the 3 businesses. They'll come and they'll speak for about 10, 15 minutes about their dream. Everybody pays $20 and they get a home cafe meal, and 100% of everybody's contribution for the meal goes to the winner. So, and you get to vote. So the whole entire group votes. And last year, actually, Kyle was one of the participants at that event. But it's fun, it's local, and it really does make an impact on the community. The winner, Susan Worrell with Meltdown Ice Cream, was able to buy a food truck with what she won last year. So I hope that you all will plan to come out.
We've got another question here. How would local farmers react to a recession?
Honestly, I think of local food oftentimes from a food security viewpoint, and I think sometimes people think of local farmers as being kind of this high income, this thing that's, for people that have more money. But realistically, as transportation costs go up, the local farmers are not raising their prices as quickly as the grocery store. I think more and more people are going to see local food as a possibility for our future, whether there's a recession, whether there's transportation issues, we can't get product from California or other countries. I think we're going to be completely changing our mindset on local food and seeing it as a reality for feeding ourselves. And I think about that because it's only been in the last 50 to 100 years that things have changed. And so hopefully before too much knowledge is lost, we'll be able to get back on track.
The next question is for Justin. If your business starts to fail, how do you manage keep aiding the other businesses that you're helping market?
That's a good question. Being upfront, being honest, if you go down, there's nothing that you can really do about it once you're down. But just being upfront with people, because the one thing that you always have is your integrity. And that's something that I've definitely learned from my father throughout a long journey that we've been through. But if you're just upfront with people and you aren't holding anything back from them, and you knock on that door, let's say it did fail, and you go knock on that door and you say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I could do about it. We tried our hardest, we left it all out there, but there's nothing I can do. You've done all that you can do personally, and some people might slam the door in your face, and some people might say, you know what, it's fine, let me know your next thing going on. So it's a difficult question to truly answer, because if you're failing, there's so much that you can do without ruining other things as well. So you just have to keep your integrity and don't lie.
This will be the last question, but I think you guys will still kind of look at the hashtag and be able to answer questions afterwards, potentially. So this last one goes to everyone, and earlier today we talked about kind of your brand. Tim Earnhardt came in and talked about that. So how important is your brand to each of you?
Oh my goodness. I guess I don't think of myself as having a brand, but I am just a mom and a farmer, and I think that I'm able to bring dignity and respect to those two things. And I think in some ways, as a culture, those things have been lost. So I think by staying true to that, that's who I am. I'm a mom, and that's okay, and I'm a farmer, and that's okay. That in some ways is my brand for anybody and anything that they're doing, to just be okay being who they are.
Sometimes it's difficult to think about being a personal brand, because I immediately have an image of a cow being branded, or and that I'll pass on that. However, my brand, what most people call a brand, is critical to my work. It ends up weeding out a lot of the situations or people that I wouldn't want to work with, because I think we align with services, artists, events that connect to what we believe. And when I think about my brand, I really think about my reputation and what people see in me, how I communicate that, and how I consciously build that reputation by being grounded in my beliefs and my values. That, to me, is where brand comes from. And what ends up happening is that people who value poems that deal with sisterhood might be attracted to my work, because that's critical to my writing. So I think of brand more as reputation and something that you are aware of and consciously create by who you are.
As an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or anybody that runs their own business, you personally are your brand. Going back to my previous comments on your integrity, if you go around lying to somebody and tell them one thing and then tell somebody something else, especially in a town of Bowling Green size, being from Louisville, word spreads, and one bad thing going around town can completely ruin everything that you've worked so hard for. So, you personally are your brand. So how you hold yourself, how you conduct yourself is very important.
Along the same lines, in branding theory, so much of it is how do you have this quick touchstone that people are able to associate your idea, your brand, with everything else about it. And like you said, the personal brand, everything, how can you make that as transparent as possible so that they can see everything that you do? Because when they have such truth in their choice, it really separates you from the rest, and at the end of the day is able to put food on our tables and a roof over our heads. So that's why the brand is important to me.
All right, let's give them a round of applause.